if you're looking for a place to sit, you can sit in the rows, just not the first row, but the rows behind, you can sit in those seats.
Good morning. Before we get started, I would ask that you please set your cell phones to silent. This hearing is being live streamed on YouTube. I would ask that individuals who are speaking to an application today please use the microphones provided to ensure that all discussions can be heard clearly. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must complete a decision request form, and these forms are available in the hearing room today at the end of the horseshoe here. Please ensure that you include your email address on the form because the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by mail. Once completed, please give the card to a staff member seated to my right. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, also known as TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, LPAT, and appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the committee's decision. To ensure a fair and timely hearing, I will vet the agenda to determine which applications can be dealt with immediately and which applications have individuals other than the applicant or agent who wish to address the committee. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda and will ask individuals to identify themselves. If there are people in interest, the matter will be held until all non-contested applications have been dealt with. If your item is held, we strongly encourage the applicant or agent to meet with the interested parties outside of the hearing room to discuss and/or resolve concerns or issues. If no person is present in interest, the item will be called in the order listed on the agenda for non-contested applications. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with his or her presentation if required, and the committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please come forward to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. If you have written submission that you read from, please hand it to the Deputy Secretary Treasurer when you're done, and again, she's seated to my right. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee of the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain extensive revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and all those entitled to notice are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views, however, covering the same points is not required, nor will it advance your cause. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker, and when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of discussions, and the application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Okay, panel members, we're going to have to confirm the minutes. So, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have the chair and committee members confirmed the minutes from the last public hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I need a motion to adopt the minutes. Okay, moved by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Ms. Valentini. All in favor? Are there any declarations of interest in the morning time slot?
No.
Staff, no? Okay. Are there any files to be closed, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. There were 5 applications that had been withdrawn but were never formally closed by the committee, and we need a motion to close them without a refund. And the applications are 725 Queen Street East, A0132 16 TEY, 378 Cedarvale Avenue, A0124/18 TEY, 170 Merton Street, application A0880/18 TEY, application for 26 Ossington Avenue, A852/18 TEY, and the last one is 231 Clinton Street, A0945/18 TEY.
Okay, can I have a motion?
I'd bring a motion forward to close the applications without a refund.
Okay. Motion moved by Ms. Valentini, seconded by Mr. Niffel. All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, are there any applicants present who wish to withdraw their application? Okay. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferrals this morning?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was a late filed request from, I believe it was, 407 here on item number 9 from the councillor and from a residents association. Although I think if we're going to be dealing with deferral requests and the people here, that it's always a good idea to have them go out in the hallway first, and then if they're still looking for a deferral, deal with the deferrals at that point.
Okay, what about item 4?
Item 4, it has to be deferred automatically because they did not post their public hearing sign.
Okay, is there anyone here for 51 Myrtle Avenue?
No.
Okay, so I think we... Yeah, you're moving
I'd
deferral?
move deferral of the
Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor?
Maybe.
Okay, is there anyone who wants to defer that's in the audience? Okay. What item is it? Which item is it?
That's,
741 Richmond Street West.
Sorry,
Is there
no.
anybody here for 741 Richmond Street West? Okay, so can you maybe have a conversation and I'll just vet the agenda and then come back if everybody's in agreement. We'll defer it then. Okay, so I will now vet the agenda. So please raise your hand if you're present. Item number 1, 999 Eglinton Avenue West. Okay, is there anybody here who wants to speak to 999 Eglinton Avenue West? No. Okay, item number 2, 393 Clinton Street. Okay, anybody in interest for Clinton? Item number 3, 314 Lumsden Avenue. Anyone in interest? Okay, item number 4 has been dealt with. Item number 5 are outside the room. Item number 6, 69 Northern Dancer. And that's item 7. I assume you're for 67 Northern Dancer. Is there anybody who would like to speak to either one of those applications present? Okay. Item number 8, 102 Merrill Avenue. Anybody here in interest? Are you in opposition? Okay, so number 8, Merrill. So if the agent can identify himself, if you can please have a conversation outside the room to see if you can work out any differences. Item number 9, 407 Huron Street. Anybody here in interest? Item number 10, 426 Rushton Road. Anybody in interest for Rushton? Item number 11, 1173 Dundas Street West. Anyone in interest? Yes? You're opposed. Okay, so 1173 Dundas. So same thing, the applicant's right beside you. If you can go outside the room and have a conversation, maybe you can work out any issues you have. Item number 12, 6 Darcy Street. Anybody here in interest? Item number 13, 67 BERTMOUNT Avenue. Okay, anyone in interest? Item number 14, 581 Crawford Street. Anyone in interest? Item number 15, 84 Four Oaks Gate. Anyone in interest? Item number 16, 291 Indian Road. Anyone in interest? Yes? Okay, same thing. If you can get together outside the room and see if you can resolve any issues. Item number 17, 462 Willard Avenue. Anybody in interest? Okay, item number 18 and 19.
We have
I'm sorry, which one? Oh, 999 Eglinton. Okay, so can you go have a conversation, please? So we're holding number 1 as well. Okay, so we were at 18 and 19, which is 536 and 538 Quebec Avenue. Are you here opposing the application or yes? Okay, so can you also go outside the room and have a conversation, please? Item number 20, 248 Markham Street. Anyone in interest? Okay, so just to recap, item number 1, 999 Eglinton West is being held. Item 4 was dealt with. Item number 5, they're outside the room as well. Item number 8 is also being held, 102 Merrill Avenue. Item number 11, 1173 Dundas Street West. Item number 16, 291 Indian Road. And for 536, 538 Quebec Avenue. Those are the held items. So we will start with item number 2, 393 Clinton Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, correspondence from Gordon Cumming, the agent. We have an engineering consultant report, and we have a staff report from engineering. So can I have your name, please, sir?
Gordon Cumming, 27 Flora Parkway.
Okay, panel members, do we need a presentation or can we go straight to questions? Okay, any comments, questions?
I have a comment. You're proposing a 3-story flat-roofed residential building, and I noticed that the context for this property is, if I'm not mistaken, that you've got 2 stories rather consistently with pitched roofs. I don't find that your proposal is consistent with the character on the street. Could you respond with what you've or how you feel about how it fits into the residential character of the street?
Well, the roofs are very flat. They're like 4 and 12, so most of them you don't even notice how steep they are. And it's set back about 6 feet from the 2 properties on either side of it. So it's in the peaks of the other roofs, so I don't think it'll be really that noticeable on the street.
But it's also a story higher.
Yes, but there's right across the street, there's
Across
3.5
the
stories.
street, there are higher buildings, but there's nothing on, to the best of my recollection, there's nothing on this side of the
And a couple of houses down, there is a flat roof, 3rd-story building. And right behind it, there is a flat roof 3rd-story building as well in the next street behind it. on the other lane.
Thank you.
That was one of my questions, was how does the height of this compare to height of, because you're asking for a height variance, front wall height.
Well, the
Does
height
that
variance,
compare to
the height variance is like an inch. It's like, I don't
Well,
even,
no, not for the front main wall, it's about 2
All the-
or 2
all the-
meters,
right,
so.
1.14 meters.
front main walls never
meet-
meet anything, so.
Sorry, can you repeat what you just said?
Well, the front main wall, no matter what renovation you do, they never meet because most of the front main walls are taller than that zoning requirement. It's a new
You just
zone
don't
on
see
an
that
older
on the
building.
street, that's the concern. How would this relate to what's going on across the street?
Well, the one across the street is a 3-story building with peak roofs, so it's much
Is that
higher.
townhouses you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a row of townhouses.
Yes, but I mean, in terms of height and,
They're higher because mine is only about a couple of feet, the thickness of a flat roof above the ceiling height, and theirs is a full story of a peak. It's a high peak. It's like a 12 and 12 peak, so it's much higher across the street.
and how, once this is built, will the height relate to the properties on either side? Just looking at the street view.
Well, the peak roof will be about the same as the flat roof will be about the same as the peaks on either side. So it's pretty well the same height.
Take your vision.
That's true, but this house is set back into those peaks,
I
so
know that-
it's not like it's jumping out onto the
I'm
street.
still not personally convinced.
Okay, do we have any further questions, panel members?
Madam Chairman, if my colleagues don't have any further questions, I'd like to bring forward a motion to refuse the application. I don't believe, first of all, there is a height variance requested, and as my colleague indicated, it's for 2.14 meters in excess of what the bylaw permits. I believe that in this particular case, the additional height actually is not consistent with the existing character on this side of the street, and I think that the house will stand out and form an unfortunate, unnecessary precedent. So my motion is to have the application denied approval.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Niffel to refuse the application. Do I have a seconder?
I'll say.
Okay, all in favor? I'll dissent. Okay, your application's refused. Yes. Okay, the next item is 314 Lumsden Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have reports from community planning as well as permits, enforcement, parking, and correspondence expressing concern from 316 Lumsden. And can we have your name, please? And
Jonathan Binskowski here on behalf of the owner.
Okay.
I do have just a couple quick things, Madam Chair. Basically, to reflect the transportation comments, if you were to consider this meritorious, I would ask that you just do tie it to this revised site plan that does indicate just the landscaping. Yeah, just the landscape being restored basically is what it is. There's no change to the built form. It's just bringing the landscaping at the front back in line to what it's like today.
Okay,
That portion in question is right here on the city boulevard. It is currently paved surface today. There is no parking provided. In this ward, you can't have, there's a moratorium on front pad permits. The only way to comply with any parking would be to build a new house, put an integral garage, or park the dwelling entirely within the property itself, which would be a 5.6 meter setback. Because this is a renovation, it's just simply not possible to provide any type of parking on the site as it is. The front wall is not proposed to be moved. So that is just reflective of the transportation comments that deals with the front boulevard. And it would go hand in hand, really, if you were to approve it. If you tied it to the transportation comments, it would really reflect exactly what it is today. So it would go hand in hand. In terms of the concern from the neighbor, I did have a conversation with both the husband and the wife, the husband last evening and the wife this morning.
Is this the concern about the driveway?
Correct. It's a tough situation because that actual portion in question is this side right here. Okay, which is the opposite side of the boulevard we're filling in. Their concern is right now there's pavement from the existing side wall to their wall. I've now told them we don't have an issue leaving it the way it is today, so they could still bring their car from the front to the rear. So that would actually remain exactly as it is today, which would allow them to access the rear parking spot. In the future, I told them there's no guarantee what would happen, but as of right now, we don't have an issue with leaving it as paved surface. It doesn't create another variance. We're well over the front landscaping now because of the added green space from the boulevard as well as the additional area. In terms of the concern from the neighbor of the height, if you go to one of the side elevations, the only portion that actually exceeds the 7.2 meters in height are these two angled portions here that bring light into the house itself. The actual main flat roof of the dwelling is actually under 7.2 meters, which is the zoning bylaw. Lastly, I have no issue with the planning report. Also, that ties it to that if you do consider this meritorious.
Okay, thank you. Panel members, do you have any questions?
The site plan that you've just given us, does that reflect the arrangement you have with the neighbor about the driveway?
Correct.
Okay. And you had suggested that we tie any approval to this site plan
Correct.
to address transportation concerns.
It would go hand in hand. The transportation says I have to do exactly what I've given you. So if you do it to this and the transportation report, it's all the same, really.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, then.
Can you confirm what's the parking situation then on the street? Along
There really isn't any. Lumsden, I believe you have daytime parking that's allowed. There is no overnight parking allowed on Lumsden. There's no permit spaces on Lumsden.
Okay.
Lumsden is a two-way that has a bus service that goes along it, so there's really no parking. There's no parking today also, other than it being illegally within the front yard.
So so there's no parking on your site and there's no parking on the street.
You have an area. So the way that the on-street permit system works, there's two options. You have street-specific ones, or you have broader areas. This allows you to park within the broader area, be it area 4B, or I don't know what the exact number is, but you would park on an adjacent street if you had a vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions?
No.
Okay, I'll need a motion then.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application, subject to the planning department conditions which have been discussed, the transportation services condition about restoration, and I'd like to tie the approval to the site plan. I'm afraid I don't have drawing number. The site plan, revised site plan filed with us today.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Okay, your application is approved.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is item number 6 and 7, 69 and 67 Northern Dancer. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, covering letter from Martin Rendell, the agent. We have a staff report from planning, correspondence in support from number 49, and then we have another 5 form letters in support from residents on Northern Dancer Boulevard. So can we have your name, please?
My name's Martin Rendell. I'm here for the owners of 69 Northern Dancer.
And I'm Celine Sandor, representing 67 Northern Dancer. I'm married to Aaron Langschmidt, the applicant.
Okay, so let's start with 69. Yeah. So we'll have to do them separate then. So we'll start with,
It's a semi-detached. They're doing the same things.
well, we'll kind of do them sorted together, but I'll see if there's any questions or presentation, because if we need presentations, I guess we would need one from each of you. So are there, for numbers, item 6, 69 Northern Dancer, are there any questions, or do you need a presentation, panel
No.
members? No? Okay, do you have any questions for Mr. Rendell?
I don't.
Oh, you have a nice...
Model 67, I can't talk to that.
Okay, so let's go.
The model, I wouldn't mind seeing it, that's okay.
Okay, so we'll talk to 16.
Okay.
So are there any questions on this one, panel members? And you're aware of the planning report, right?
Yeah, we're okay with all the conditions.
Conditions, okay.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the 3 planning department conditions about variance 2 and 3, no water or sewage in the detached garage, and that the garage is to be constructed substantially in accordance with the elevation drawings.
Going to second it. I think this is, clearly meets the test for a minor variance.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Ms. Valentini. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, now, can I'm sorry, just get your name again?
Lean Sandor. I won't be on there. It's my husband's name, Aaron Langschmidt.
So the same planning report applies.
Yeah, and I'm aware of it.
Okay, panel members,
They're
do
different
you...
conditions, though. I think they're different. Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, but it's the same planning
Yeah.
report, same conditions. So again, any questions, or can we
No,
go
but
to a
since she
motion?
made a model, do you want to show us the
They want to
model?
see your models.
I would like, yes.
Because you put in all this effort, we
Yeah.
want to make sure that... Uh-huh. Right. Yeah, the plans. Yeah.
That's an impressive model.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I can just.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, thanks. Okay, so I guess a motion then.
Sure. Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of this application as well, subject to the same 3 planning conditions. Again, like my colleague, I believe that this clearly meets the test for variance approval.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Mr. Nipfel to approve, seconded by Ms. Valentini. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Absolutely.
Okay, item number 9, 407 Huron Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. Covering letter from Joel Farber, the solicitor. We have floor plans, as well as GFA and a site-specific bylaw. We have email correspondence from Heritage and a staff report from the Director of Community Planning. And we also, I'll get your name in a minute, but we also have a request to defer from the Councillor's office. So if we could have your name, please.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. It's Joel Farber, members of the committee. It's Joel Farber. I'm the solicitor for the applicant. And I did actually just saw Councillor Layton's request for the deferral. I think the Secretary Treasurer indicated there was another one from the Residents Association. I do see another piece of correspondence. I haven't even seen that yet. But just given Councillor Layton's request for a deferral, I've conferred with our client. We are fine with a deferral if that's what the council is requesting for some, community consultation. I'm not sure what that'll entail, but we're fine
Okay, so
with
you'll
it.
be working with the Councillor's office to set up meeting with the community to work.
Correct.
Through you, Madam Chair, the
I was
letter
gonna
came
ask-
in very late last night, around 4, almost 5 o'clock yesterday, the end of the workday. I did send a letter to the association, just letting them know that they should be here in case you decided not to defer it. And I directed them to the Application Information Center and to review the materials. And then following that, the councillor's letter was received. If you
Madam Chairman, when we give a deferral, we're very specific about deferring for a specific reason, and in this case, presumably it's to consult with the neighborhood, but do you have any indication of what the neighborhood concerns are, and therefore what the issue is that they're hoping you address? Because if it's Did you not have the use? Presumably, you're not going to agree to that, in which case the deferral is a waste of time.
I actually don't. I haven't received the letter. I was never communicated, no one communicated with us about the application. You know, we've been sort of dealing with the application internally with staff for quite some time. So I don't know what the concerns are. The request is for a modification to the permitted uses, because offices are permitted. It's just they have to be associated with the community health center, which is the Mount Sinai Hospital.
And yours aren't, yeah.
And there are some areas in the building, some office areas in the building that are not being leased by Mount Sinai Hospital, so it won't be part of that center. So that space needs to find a tenant.
It sounds like, in reading the letter quickly, it sounds like there's a concern about potentially the building being converted to office space, the entire building.
Yes, so to answer that.
But the planning condition, I don't know if you've seen it, would limit, like, kind of.
Yes, so we saw the planning condition, the planning report yesterday. I spoke to Mr. Santiago about it, and we've agreed to it. It is exactly consistent with what we applied for. I kind of thought that's what we applied for, the 425 square meters of non-associated office use. I think the committee, the planning staff report merely implements the intent of the application. So whether you call it a condition or whatnot, I'm totally the applicant is totally satisfied with it.
Okay, well, let me just go to the deferral first of all, since it's on the table. So a motion to grant a deferral. So I'll need a motion either way.
Client agrees to the deferral. Is that correct?
My client would not be opposed to the deferral.
Not be opposed, okay.
It'll be 3 months. 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months.
Oh, I thought we perhaps could get on the next agenda. Wishful thinking on my part.
If you go online, you see full.
Well, the building's been under construction for quite some time. I think we're close to being ready for some occupancy in there. So
do you want to reconsider your agreement for the deferral?
Let me.
Do you want to stand it down, and then you can come back when you're ready, and you can have talk to your client?
Sure, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, and yeah, maybe you could go and see the counselor as well. Like, we can. So anyway, I'll hold it for now.
For you, Madam Chair, maybe you can actually see if the counselor is available, or see if you can contact the person that sent the letter and maybe have a conversation before. I had asked them to still have somebody come today so you could have a conversation with them in the hallway, but I see that they haven't.
Is the condition recommended by the planning department may alleviating concerns they have?
I think there's concern that the use is not going to be in conjunction with what's already there, and they have some concerns as to what it was, because I don't think we specified in our notice. But it is in the information online, which I directed them to, and I haven't heard from anyone today, although I did receive another late email yesterday saying that if it's not deferred, consider their letter to be opposition. But they never, it was just a very brief email that was not printed.
Also, if you actually do discuss this with the person that's representing the opposition, you might draw their attention the planning report, which places which you would agree to, places a restriction on the size. I personally don't see the benefit of a deferral. I think the problem, if it can be corrected today, and if it can't be corrected today, it's probably not going to be corrected at all.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to mention, because in your submission you talk about accessory uses, so that to what's there. So perhaps you can explain what uses you're proposing that work harmoniously.
Right.
Kind of the gist from your submission.
Okay.
Okay,
That
so
would be really helpful.
Standing it down.
Yep, so we're going to stand it down, so you'll come back.
Yes. I'll make the calls.
Okay, great, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, just to give a timeline for how long are you going to stand it down? An hour? Would that be enough time?
That would be plenty.
Yeah?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, so the next item is item number 10, 426 Rushton Road. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and we have a staff report from the manager, permits, and enforcement parking. Can I have your name, please?
Ian Cunha, representing the owners of 426 Rushton Road.
Okay, panel members, do we need a presentation?
No.
No? Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. Potentially, there's some overlook privacy concerns from the balcony on the second floor. Have you
Well,
anything to?
yeah, if you look at the drawing that we submitted, we actually have a 5-foot side fencing. The railing will be
Mine's
5 feet
really
high.
Small, sorry. Yeah, so you've got it on the sides, right?
Yeah.
To prevent
Correct.
overlooking on the sides. Okay.
Yes. I'll automatically do that. I know that it's important, so. I also have a couple of immediate neighbors.
Thank you.
424. I don't have a letter from them of support, but they have allowed us to do the party wall. So the wall is right on the property line, and that will be applying for administrative permit for them if the approval is done here today.
Okay, any other questions?
No?
It's advisory.
Yeah. Parking space?
Yeah, because it is a licensed spot, so they just, yeah.
Yeah, we have,
Same owners, that's.
yes, we have a
Oh, it's the
license.
same. I was looking to see if
Yeah.
you needed to go update your permit, but it's
No,
the same owner.
yes, it's the
Okay.
same owner.
I don't have anybody else have any questions?
No.
No, I'm ready to bring a motion if no one else has any questions. Okay. Thank you for the clarification about the privacy screening, and I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval of the application. I've looked through the materials, and in my view, this is in keeping with what's going on in the neighborhood. I don't see any adverse impact on neighbors, so my motion is for approval of the application.
Would you consider a friendly amendment that the second floor balcony is to be screened as shown on drawings A6 and A7?
I'm fine with that since
I'm fine with
the
that, sure,
drawings and the
absolutely.
agent has agreed, so.
Okay, I have a,
A6 and A7?
okay, I have a motion moved by Ms. Valentini with that condition. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Niffel. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Okay, item 11 is held. Item 12, number 6 Darcy Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and 2 photographs showing the location between 6 Darcy Street. It says 6 Darcy Street and 6 Darcy Street at the rear. They probably mean 8 different number. Okay, can we
Morning.
have your name, please, sir?
Neil Ironside. I'm the agent for the applicant. The applicant, Doug McLeod's just in the chairs.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation?
No.
Anyone have any questions?
Just looking for
Could I, the deck, if, I had the same point, but if you look,
The guards or anything, right? Is that
There is a deck,
set
which is
back.
not a variance.
look
which
at drawing A4, it's set back a substantial distance from the edge of the
Oh, I
roof.
see.
it doesn't overlook the backyard.
Here,
A4. There we go.
see here?
Oh, I see.
It's set back that far from the edge, which,
So it's not on.
It's over the existing. It's not a pre-existing deck, but it's not a variance. It's permitted.
I guess and that's fine. I guess the only reason I was confused was and on the elevations, I didn't see any guardrails or fencing or anything like that, so.
Yeah, the
I
parapet
wasn't
wall.
sure if the deck was actually, is it a wall that?
There's a
provides that?
parapet wall, so the deck is recessed underneath the
Okay, thank you.
over the parapet.
Clarifies that.
Okay, any other questions?
No, the only other thing I note is, I mean, if you look at the floor space index on the face of it, it looks like you're going up quite a bit, but I noted that the existing is 1.38. Am I correct about that?
You're correct. We're actually increasing the size of the house by 10%, and it's
Instead of
just for the purposes of making a decent-sized second bedroom. But overall, yeah, it's 138% now.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have anybody have any other questions? I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Based on the materials filed and the clarification with the FSI, in my view, this is in keeping with what is already going on. I don't think there are any adverse impacts, and I feel this meets the 4 tests for variance. So my motion is for approval of the application without condition.
Seconder?
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a Mr. Bayat. I have a motion by Ms. Valentini, seconded by Mr. Bayat, to approve the application. All in favor? Application's approved, sir.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay, 67 BERTMOUNT, item number 13. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have staff reports from manager permits and enforcement parking, as well as condition number 2 from forestry. And your name is, sir?
My name is Joe Dome, 1101 Steeles Avenue West, agent for the applicant.
Okay, panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go straight to questions? No? Any questions? Okay, no
Madam
questions?
Chairman, if there are no other questions from my colleagues, I'd like to move approval of the application. I believe this is extremely minor, the variance application. I think it actually fits well within the context of the area that's proposed, and my recommendation is for approval subject to forestry condition number 2.
Do I have a seconder?
I would agree with that. I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor?
Thank you.
Your application is approved. So item number 14, 581 Crawford Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, staff reports from community planning, as well as parking permits and enforcement, and we have forestry asking for condition number 3. So I need your name, sir, but I'll wait till you can go to the mic. Okay, can I have your name, please?
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Giorgio Lolos, members of committee and members of staff.
How do you spell your last name?
Lolos.
Okay. Staff, do you need an address or do you have it? Okay. Okay, are you making any changes?
Yes, we are.
Are you talking to staff? So what are the changes based on the notice that we have in front of us, not the zoning review?
Okay, that's what we're going to go with. Basically, item number 1, we're reducing the floor space index, or the GFA, to 92% as opposed to 94. It gives us an area of
Okay, so you're going to 0.92, and what is that in square meters?
258.2.
258.2? Okay.
Yes. Item number 2, which is the maximum building height, that's being eliminated.
Okay, so you're removing variance number 2?
Yep. Variance number 3 and 4 are consecutively sort of balancing each other. We're basically reducing the sidewall heights from 10.13 to 9.52 on both. 9.52
on variance number 3?
And 4. They're back to back.
They're both going to 9.5?
Correct, 9.52.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I have. Okay, and what about 5?
5 is being removed. 6 is staying as requested.
Okay.
7, 1, and 2 are all eliminated.
Okay, so you're basically...
We're asking for 4 variances, one of them being the side yards, based on our conversations and our...
So you're basically doing the planning reports?
Yeah, we dealt with planning, and we work with them to sort of reduce some of the majority of their requests, and along the way, we reduce some more.
Okay.
9.52.
9.52.
I can give you a copy of the latest zoning review.
And then 6 is the same, 7, 1, and 2 are gone. Okay. Well, with those changes, panel members, do you need a presentation or do you want to go to questions?
No, but in terms of, maybe that's already addressed. Did you see the memo from the Transportation Department about removing the asphalt driveway and converting it to softscaping on the city boulevard?
Well, we're leaving that as we're proposing to leave that alone right now because we need a parking surface from equipment to sort of come by and drop off. We're going to move it in the future, but right now we need to ask for it because we need somewhere to park vehicles and not get muddy in the area. Probably don't get the sidewalk dirty. We need a parking area for equipment and so forth. So we're asking for the time being to leave it intact. Later on, we'll remove them when the site is all complete.
So in terms of it being a condition, you don't have a concern with that?
No.
I don't know how long it takes to enforce that.
Through you, Madam Chair, well, it would be able to be done until all of the construction is done, and so I don't know if there's an undertaking or an application that they have to make through right-of-way that they will monitor as the construction goes on, and then at the end it will be a final.
But if we impose it as a condition, can the applicant still go get a building permit and whatnot?
Yeah, they would have to satisfy right-of-way that they're going to reinstate it once everything is done. I don't know what's involved with that. It may be an undertaking or some money's being put up front. I'm not sure.
Any other questions, panel members?
Yes. The changes to the variances that you brought forward today, do you have, what impact does that have on the elevation drawings?
Generally, the overall roof height we got eliminated, so we comply with the front elevation. The sides got removed a little bit; they got reduced. As far as the impact, the building is not as deep any longer.
It's not as
the depth has been reduced.
It looks the same, but
it looks the same, but it just got modified to sort of suit.
My other question was: you have a second or a third story deck.
Correct.
And I have concerns that there's privacy issues.
Okay. Well,
and properties. You've only got a glazed sort of balustrade there. Are you proposing any kind of a barrier between your property and the adjacent properties? Because it's hard to tell now because you're not as long. Are you extending out past the length of the others?
No, actually, our third-story balcony is off the master bedroom. That portion of the third story is nestled back behind the existing adjacent neighbors, so we don't project beyond them. Also,
even the neighbor on the north, because the north is narrow. You're behind.
I'm behind them, even on the third-story aspect. But within your comments and respect, we have consulted with planning. Planning is asking for a 1.5 meter screen privacy walls on either side. That we're willing to accommodate, and we will alter our plans to suit that.
The 1.5 screen on both sides?
On both sides, both north and south, even though we feel we don't need to because we're nestled between both structures. We'll be within or behind the rear yard.
If we attach that as a condition?
Absolutely not, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, panel members? No? Okay, then I need a motion. Anybody?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the revised application as proposed by the applicant, subject to forestry condition number 3, the transportation services condition about ultimately converting the obsolete driveway, which you've indicated you won't do right now, but you will do ultimately, and provision of a 1.5 meter high screen on the north and south edges of the third floor balcony.
Okay, I have a motion with the conditions outlined by Mr. Nipfel to approve the application as amended. I'll just run through it just to be sure. So variance number 1 goes to 0.92. Number 2 is removed. Number 3 and 4, the height goes to 9.52. Number 5 is removed. Number 6 stays as is, and number 7, 1, and 2 are removed. Okay, so the motion for this application as amended with the conditions outlined by Mr. Nipfel, and I need a seconder. Okay, seconded by Mr. Bayat. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 15, 84-4 Oaks Gate. Planning or panel members, we have a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have email correspondence from the assistant planner as well as ravine and natural feature protection. We have forestry asking for condition number 3. We have a staff report from TRCA, and we have a lot of support from residents on 4 Oaks Gate. Okay, we need your name.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Leo Mastandrea. I'm the agent for the owners at 84 Four Oaks.
Okay, panel members, do we need a presentation or can we go to questions? Does anyone have any questions?
That being the case, Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application, subject to forestry condition number 3. I note that the proposal has the support of a number of people, including the neighbors on both sides, which is positive. And I'd also like to note that the integral garage, in this case, is not artificially adding to height of the building and placing it out of context. So on that basis, I believe that the proposal, as we have before us, clearly meets the 4 tests for variance and is in keeping with the character of the community.
Okay. Yeah.
Forestry condition number 3.
I'm prepared to support the motion for approval. I agree this does seem to be in keeping in terms of size of the house in terms of the neighbors. As well, I note that planning and TRCA have been noted. So I'm happy to second the motion for approval.
All right, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Ms. Valentini. All in favor? Your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Item 16 is held. Item 17, 462 Willard Avenue. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and 4 form letters in support from residents on Willard Avenue. It includes one of the adjacent neighbors as well. No, actually both. Okay. No. Yeah, both. Okay. Can I have your name, please?
My name is Jonathan Hatch. I'm the agent for the owner at 462 Willard Avenue.
Panel members, do you need a presentation or can we go to questions if you have any?
I have a question, just generally speaking. I mean, your variance relating to the total floor area of the garage, you're going from 40 and you're asking for 51.22. Reasoning for that, and how does that fit with other garages along the laneway?
So this, the only reason for it is that if you look at the plans, we're proposed 2 parking spaces for the family needs 2 parking spaces, and then the extra 11 square meters, if you look at it, is actually really just for a little bit of storage behind the parking spaces. You can see there's only about 1.5 meters. It's really for bikes, lawnmowers, etc. There are a number of different applications in the area that have large footprints as well. I will just show you some data. So at 300 Armadale, they've proposed a floor or a total area of 51.2. That's nearby, but on our area specifically, there's not a lot of applications that have been proposed recently. However, we have spoken to planning. Planning is not an objection, and we have correspondence with planning as well. So we've modified the plans based on planning discussion, and both adjacent neighbors are also in approval of it.
So one more quick question. These wood panel doors on the east elevation, that's to access the storage? Those are some big double doors.
Oh, yes. So that's the, yes, the east side is just the access to the backyard. So there's big garage doors on the western side, and then large doors just for access to the garage from the house side.
Any other questions, panel members?
Just concerned a little, sorry, Madam Chair. Just concerned about the amount of landscaping that might be lost as a result of the extended garage.
Absolutely. So I wanted to show you a couple of things in regards to that. So this is actually the backyard currently as it is. You can see the actual at-grade landscape deck, which is only a few inches off, is one of the reasons why the landscaping percentages are lower than they should be. But also, when we went in for zoning, you'll notice on the left-hand side on the plan, that's actually a right-of-way, but we weren't allowed to include that as part of our landscaping calculations when we spoke to zoning, despite the fact that that right-of-way isn't being used and the fact that we have a laneway access. So actually the numbers are actually inflated even higher. When we spoke with planning, their concerns were also about the landscaping and the landscaping percentages. So we modified our walkway so that they are now eco-permeable pavers, so there's more water drainage. You'll notice in this backyard, this isn't a lot of concrete. All of the water is draining directly into the soil. There's no water issues, which is why none of the neighbors really have any concerns. So the proposal is reflective of the changes that we discussed with planning, specifically in regards to landscaping.
The issue that you
Yeah, for whatever reason, they didn't count this. Yeah, and you can see it's actually grass. There's a few flagstones just here around the house, but in reality, that right-of-way isn't being used at all. So the numbers are actually conflated comparatively to what they actually are.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, motion.
Move the proposal as presented.
Okay. I have a motion to approve by Mr. Bayat.
Madam Chairman, I think that this is a very minor excuse me, and I think about the right-of-way is, I think, clearly needs.
All right, I have a motion to approve, moved by Mr. Bayat, seconded by Mr. Mitchell. All in favor? You're up.
Thank you.
Okay, 18 and 19 are held. Item number 20, 38 Markham Street. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, and elevations, and a covering letter from Nathan Bueller, the agent. Hi, can we have your name, please?
Good morning, I'm Nathan Bueller from Building Workshop, agent for the owner.
Panel members, do you need a presentation? No presentation. Do you have any questions?
This to be the day for screening of decks. I have a note here that you have a deck that potentially has a problem of overlook, and I'm suggesting that it would be useful if you had screening along the sides of that deck. Do you have any problem with that?
No problem at all. It would be preferable to do it just on the south side where we're approaching the neighbor.
I should have said.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. It's on the second floor, yeah. Rear deck on the second floor. It's off of the third floor. It's on the top of the second floor.
All right. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the provision of permanent opaque screening with a minimum height of 1.5 meters from the floor of the deck along the south. You have to help me with this. On the south side of the deck, on the third floor deck. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion to approve with the condition outlined by Mr. Nickel. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Bayat. All in favor? Your application's approved. Okay, so before we go to the holds, why don't we take 5 minutes? So we'll be back at 10:35, and then we'll start with item number 1999, Eglinton West. Assuming they're back in the room. Yeah, you are? Okay, great. Number 5.
But I haven't seen. No, they were here. No. Height point. So,
Section.
so
Let's
we're
do-
7.
Here's the section. Okay, there's 7.5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now what do we do? Is it?
No, it's the building. So this is the building.
Yeah.
This is 7.5. Can't project of the 7.5.
So you go to the bill now, so the,
To a height of 7.5. So 7.5 up,
Up.
and then you can't project. So it has to start at 7.5. It has,
you have
oops.
to go
Okay, so can I just ask you for 407 Huron Street, what are you proceeding with it, or are you deferring, or?
Yeah, we're going to ask for a deferral. I've spoken to the resident, the Ms., forget her name, Julie, from the Huron Sussex Neighborhood Association.
Okay.
She says she just got notice of it yesterday.
Okay.
And, you know.
Well, as long as you understand the timeline, and so.
Yeah, so,
we'll take it.
again, I'm just hoping the Secretary Treasurer can put us on the next possible agenda, and we'll take our chances with that.
Maybe the next possible next year.
Yeah. Well, the building's not quite ready yet, so.
Okay.
We have some time.
All right, so we'll take it into committee then on the deferrals.
Thank you.
Panel members, for item number 9, 407 Huron Street, the applicant is requesting a deferral to have consultation with the counselor's office as well as neighboring residents.
I'd like to move the deferral and thank the applicant for his understanding on this issue. Hopefully, we'll get it back relatively quickly and everything will be resolved.
I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion to defer, moved by Mr. Nipfel, seconded by Ms. Larson. All in favor? Oh, with the recirculation fee. Sorry.
Sure. How much is that?
Okay, all in favor? Okay, so your deferral's.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. Okay, so 999 Eglinton West, item number 1. Are they in the room? Yeah. Okay. Are you still opposing? Okay, can you come to the front here then? Members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Andrew Dales, the agent, email correspondence from traffic planning's technologist, and opposition from 997 Eglinton and 35 Menon Road. Okay, can we have your name, please?
My name is Andrew Dales.
Okay, Mr. Dales,
Okay.
can we have a presentation
Yes.
for the opposition?
So I'm the planning consultant for Java Investments Limited, the owner of 999 Eglinton Avenue West. Property is on the south side of Eglinton, just east of Allen Road. The property backs onto a public lane that sits between Eglinton and the houses to the south. The proposal is for the addition of a single story, so a third story on the existing building, and a 3-story rear addition. The building was heavily damaged by fire in 2016, and this is a single story, 1-story addition on the existing building and a 3-story rear addition. Retail is proposed on the ground floor, and 4 rental dwelling units, 2 2-bedroom units, two 1-bedroom units and 2 2-bedroom units are proposed for the 2nd and 3rd floors of this building. 1 parking space is proposed at the rear of the building. At the time the application was filed, 7 variances to 6 zoning parameters were required. Since that time, we've worked closely with Transportation Services and Community Planning to revise the proposal to address their concerns. It's my understanding that both Transportation Services and Community Planning staff support the proposed variances. The rear setback was increased during this time from 4.6 meters, this is from the far side of the lane, from 4.6 meters to 6.39 meters to allow for a future lane widening and to provide greater separation between the building and the neighborhood to the south. The result of the increased rear setback to the far side of the lane was the elimination of 2 variances. We no longer need an angular plane variance, we're entirely within the angular plane. And the other is for the setback from the center line of the lane, and that comment came from Transportation Services, again, to allow for this future widening of the lane. So based on the current plans, we need 5 variances to 4 zoning parameters, which are parking under both bylaws, setback from the far side of the lane, 1.1 meter variance from 7.5 to 6.39. That's under the new citywide bylaw. And then 2 of the variances under the old City of York bylaw, which are FSI, floor space index, and building height. So there's no building height or FSI variance required under the new citywide bylaw. So the property is designated as a mixed-use area on an avenue in the official plan, and it's zoned CR, commercial residential, under the new zoning bylaw 569/2013. These official plan designations encourage residential intensification in mid-rise buildings that are massed to minimize impacts on neighboring properties. And this is a key point. Although a mid-rise building up to 8 stories is permitted as of right, proposed here is a 3-story low-rise building on the property. So the proposed height of 13.58 meters is in 3 stories is less than half of the as-of-right 24-meter, 8-story height limit that will allow a building to be built under the official plan, the mid-rise guidelines, and the as-of-right zoning permissions. To provide enough space for 2-bedroom rental units on the 2nd and 3rd floors, we're asking for a modest rear yard setback variance of 1.1 meters. The city's official plan actually encourages the production of new rental housing units, especially larger units like the ones that are being proposed here that with 2 bedrooms that are better able to accommodate families with children. The modest rear setback reduction is not expected to be visually detectable at 1.1 meters and would have little impact on neighboring properties. The proposed 3-story building with a 6.3 meter setback would have much less impact, of course, than an as-of-right 8-story building at the required 7.5 meter setback.
I have about a minute left.
Yep. By falling entirely within the required angular plane, the building transitions appropriately to the adjacent neighborhood, and there are, of course, no shadow impacts on the property to the south. In terms of the parking variance, Transportation Services is supportive of it, as I've said. We're on the Eglinton Avenue LRT, 350 meters from the Eglinton West subway station. I'll just very quickly address the FSI and height variances. They're only required under the old bylaw, and I believe they're largely technical in nature. The allowable FSI is much below what the FSI that would result from an as-of-right building. And the height limit, in fact, is based on an old complicated formula that comes from the old City of York bylaw 1-83. The as-of-right height limit under the old bylaw is 4.47 meters. It's nowhere near the 24-meter height limit that's, reflects council's direction for the area in the current zoning bylaw. So I believe we meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. There's very little, if any, impact on neighboring properties, and we maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan.
Okay, Mr. Dales. Panel members, do you have any questions, or do you want to hear from the opposition?
Just a really quick one. In terms of your variance for setback from the lane or opposite side of the lane, looking at the plan, is it true that other buildings in the area go back further or just as far?
Yeah. The building just to the west of us extends all the way to the lane.
Does it? Okay.
I would say, though, that, that's something that probably wouldn't be supported.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
but yeah, that's the existing
Trying to get
context.
a flavor of what.
Right, is there today. But yeah, if that building was redeveloped, they would very likely be at or around, 6.5, something like that, probably.
Your proposal isn't going to be the furthest building back on the lot in this vicinity.
We're going to be closer to Eglinton than the existing building to the west of us.
Thank you. Any other questions before I go to the opposition? Oh, okay, sir. If I can ask you to have a seat, and then we'll have you back. Sir, you have 5 minutes. If you can come to the podium. No. So if you can start, please, by giving us your name and address.
My name is Greg Wong. I'm the owner of the next door, 997 Eglinton Avenue West. I oppose to the proposed addition of the 3rd story and the addition at the back there. basically, the major point I'm going to say is that it blocks out my natural lighting of all my windows on the second floor. The building is basically attached to each other with a little opening on the second story. If they build a third story, then all the natural lighting would be affected. Plus the fact if they build a three-story, and as the applicant suggested, we allow up to 8-story to build. If I in the years down like ahead, if I want to build an 8-story, then it might be a big problem for me to getting that go ahead. Also, because lack of parking space he proposed, there's already a shortage of parking space there in the area. The municipal parking lot next to us, and also the street parking is very limited. So I'm concerned about this this 3 parking spot that's being short. And it's all outlined on my couple letters, and if I missed anything. The parking space will affect my commercial unit on the ground floor because having no parking spaces in the area or tight, and they would affect their business.
I just have a question. You just said a few minutes ago that if you decide to go 8 stories, it's going to be a problem because of his addition. Can you just, I don't understand why.
Well, if we propose to, if we allow to build an 8-story building, and if he has finished the 3rd floor and I'm building an 8-story, I don't know if that's allowed.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but if you were going to do it, I don't understand how the 3 stories would be a problem.
Because the buildings are attached to each other.
Attached? I thought there was a space.
Only on the 2nd floor.
Only on the 2nd.
Only on the 2nd floor.
Okay. I guess my questions lie in terms of, I was just looking at the view of the property and I've seen it. You're talking about impact from light for your 2nd-story windows. Is that at the rear of the building or?
Side, at the side of the building, we're facing each other.
Okay.
I had the same question.
In the back as well.
So you've got windows actually
facing their building.
Into the property line?
Yes.
At the rear?
At the side.
At the side, but
side.
toward the rear, because it looks at the front that you're attached.
The front first 20 feet is attached on the 2nd floor.
I'm just looking at the view of it here.
The ground floor is totally attached from the entire length of the building.
And then there's a slot on the 2nd floor?
Yes, correct.
You've got window, if this is the proposal, you've got windows that are facing right?
Facing them. And they have window facing me, my building as well. So basically a mirror image.
Okay. Any more questions of the speaker?
I was just looking at the site plan, if I may, and I noticed you've got parking space at the back of your building currently.
Yes, I have parking space at the back.
How would the elimination of parking that your neighbor's proposing, how would that affect your parking?
Well, I'm saying it affects the neighborhood parking.
But not yours specifically?
No.
Thank you.
So how much parking do they currently have?
They have, I believe, 3 or 4 now.
It looks like it's off the laneway. I don't know.
No, they have about maybe 30 or 40 feet setback from the laneway.
Okay.
So the entire extension to the back, that's parking space now.
Any other questions of the speaker?
Just for clarity, if I may, the windows that you mentioned on the second floor.
The what?
The windows.
Windows, yeah.
On the second floor.
Yep.
You have windows that face your neighbor's property as well. How far apart are they?
About 5-6 feet, maybe.
What's that?
I'm just guessing. Yeah.
Any other questions of the speaker?
I'm going to ask the applicant to address your concern of windows on his site plan because something doesn't sound right. So my question is going to be of the applicant, but it's about the point you've raised.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Dales?
Steve Newman, the owner of the property, comment about the distance of the
Could you
windows.
refer to the site
Hang
plan?
on.
Sure.
Hang on 1 second. So is your client speaking?
On that matter, I can address generally these comments, but if there are specific questions regarding the existing condition, I think it makes sense for my client to
If he's speaking, can we just have your name and address for the record, sir?
do you want me to put the site plan up?
Yeah.
Please.
My name is Steve Newman. I live at 351 Courtleigh Boulevard, Toronto.
How do you spell your last name?
Newman. Okay. So currently, I believe his second floor is being used for commercial purposes, as is ours. And the windows, as he mentioned, about halfway through the building, there's a setback of a couple feet on each side to create this kind of, well, just a setback between the two buildings where adjacent window wells are facing. Okay?
The site plan that, can you go further? The site plan that we've got tends to indicate that you and he have adjacent buildings and you share a property line.
Correct.
But he's talking about windows and a slot of light down the middle that I don't see on the site plan. So is there more of an addition than at the back? Are you putting an addition at the side as well?
No, what we're doing is we're extending the wall. The wall will go continuous from the beginning of from Eglinton all the way down to the lane. Not to the lane, but to our setback from the lane. And it'll be in compliance with the building code.
That's the first floor plan.
Yeah. We won't have any windows on the side, on the east side of our building. Our light is all coming through a light shaft in the middle of the building that splits the front and the back. That's the plan.
And his building is set back slightly from that property line.
In the middle.
His windows are in the
right,
middle.
in the middle. That's correct. Yeah.
I think he has a valid point. Is there anything you can do to adjust to provide him some light?
Well, I mean, we're coming in. We're one floor above. He will be getting some light at certain times of the day coming through there. It's commercial use, okay, so it's not residential use on the second floor. And he won't have any fire issues because we're complying with the building code. I think the issue is that as we build up on Eglinton to provide more rental apartments, with infills, unfortunately, the light has to come from the north end or the south end or through light shafts through the middle of the building. We're building entirely on our side. Andrew?
I'll jump in and say, we're not asking for a height variance. The only variance here that's really an issue is the 1.1 meters at the rear of the building. We have, as of right, 8-story height limit here, 24 meter. We could build 8 stories with no approvals whatsoever. So, and these buildings are already close together. I think the marginal impact of the additional story on those windows is going to be almost nothing. The buildings are already close together. I think it's really, I'm not sure it makes sense to start talking about whether the building can be brought down in height when we're already less than half what we could do there without any variances whatsoever. There's no FSI variance under the new bylaw. The height limit is 24 meters, 8 stories. We're asking for one additional story in the context of an as-of-right limit of 8 stories.
I'm just trying to get clarity around the issue that's been raised, and it seems to me that the proposed site plan is not accurate. It doesn't accurately reflect this gentleman's building.
On the site plan.
Okay.
That's drawing A002. Yeah.
Is there a, that doesn't show his building either. Well, it doesn't show his building.
He's at 997, right?
Correct, but that's not shown on that plan, so it's not that it's...
Right here.
I see, but it's not showing the side?
Building.
That's the property lines. No, I understand.
Because information. The setback that we're talking about, he has windows. Is it on the ground floor?
No, it's on the second floor, on the top floor. Only on the top floor.
On the ground floor, it is like
On the ground floor, it's exactly like that, correct.
second floor, his is setback.
And on the second floor, both buildings currently have a setback of approximately 2 feet from the center line from each other.
Each side.
On each side. In the back, kind of 5 feet. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got 4 feet to whatever.
I think it's 4 feet, yeah.
4 feet window to window, and in
Correct.
the proposal would be 2 feet from window to wall.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you.
And it continues all the way open to the rear. Yeah. I think it's 2 feet.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll just finish up and address the parking issue. Plenty of street parking, Green P almost directly next door, 350 meters from the subway, on the brand new LRT, vetted by staff over many, many months. They're comfortable with our proposed parking supply. I believe that the variance is justified on that basis.
Any other questions, members? Go ahead. The opposition? Okay. You can push the button there, I guess. Yes. Okay.
Just a quick question for you. The gentleman mentioned that the second floor in your property is currently business use. It's not a residential use?
Currently it's for, commercial, yes. It was for residential, but it's set up to be either way. It's like a 2-bedroom apartment, so I can rent it out as residential as well.
But the current use is commercial?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, panel members?
So in fact, your letter to us. Natural lighting, 3rd floor addition.
Well, I just call it apartments, like a 2-bedroom apartment, but it's being used as commercial purpose. The layout is like an apartment. So I just call it an apartment.
Any other questions, panel members? All right, let's take it into committee. Any comments?
I am prepared to bring a motion. Thank you, both of you, for your presentations, and they were both very helpful in terms of bringing forward any of the issues that might be here on this application. And while I sympathize with what the opposition is saying, Mr. Dale has made the point that in terms of the height, there is no height variance here for the 3rd story under the new zoning bylaw. In fact, as of right, he has made it clear he can go up to 8 stories. So I don't think, and the variances that he is requesting relate to setback from the lot line of the abutting lane on the opposite side of the lane. Mr. Dale has indicated that there are other properties along this stretch that go further back, and that he has worked with planning and transportation in terms of that setback. So in my view, based on those things, I feel that this application does meet the 4 tests for a minor variance. I feel it's appropriate in keeping with what the current zoning bylaw contemplates for development of this stretch of Eglinton. I believe it meets the official plan requirements, and that it generally fits in with what currently is happening in the area, or what exists. So my motion is for approval of the application.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
I'd second the motion. I also noticed that there's no variance request for side lot setbacks as well, which would have been an issue relative to access to the windows. I believe that the proposal clearly meets the 4 tests for variance and is consistent with the intensification strategy in the official plan. I also sympathize with the point that was raised, but I believe there is still some light penetration. I don't think there are many options on the site, and the issue that's been raised is not, in my view, salient to the actual variances that are being requested, so I'm prepared to support the motion.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the application moved by Ms. Valentini, seconded by Mr. Nifel. All in favor? Your application's approved.
Thank you.
And sir, did you fill in a decision request card so that you get notified of the decision and any appeal instructions if you wish to appeal? Cards, are they at the end of the, there should be some over there. Fill it in and give it to a staff member, okay? Now you have to talk to staff if you have any questions. Okay. Item number 5, 741 Richmond Street West. Now, are we, before I start reading all of this, are we deferring or are we doing?
Our preference is still to defer, but I don't believe the neighbors are in support of that.
Okay. Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a covering letter from Mr. Galbraith, email correspondence from the assistant planner, as well as the traffic planning technologist, staff reports from permits and enforcement parking. We have forestry asking for condition number 3, 11 form letters in support from residents on Richmond Street West, as well as Mitchell Avenue. And then we have a lot of correspondence in opposition as well from residents on Richmond and on Mitchell Avenue. And we have a 56 signature petition by owners, occupants of Richmond Street West, Mitchell Avenue, and Tecumseh Street that was received on the 5th of November. Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Sean Galbraith. I'm a planner here on behalf of the applicant, who is also here, as well as the architect, if you have any questions for them. What is proposed is a replacement single detached house. It is effectively 4 stories, though technically it is 3 stories. No height variance is required. It is permitted as of right in the zone. The only yard variance that is requested is the side yard setback, and that is the existing condition that we're looking to maintain. Effectively, the density variance is because of the size of the lot and not necessarily because of the size of the building. We maintaining the front and rear yard setbacks. We have a mutual drive on the east side, so we meet that side yard setback. We're currently proposing to remove the rear garage and workshop and concrete area, effectively going from close to 0% soft landscaping in the rear to effectively close to 100% soft landscaping in the rear, and increase the soft landscaping in the front of the house. We're also proposing green roofs on the front setback and on the roof. The building is largely massed in accordance with 707 Richmond, which is in the planning report, but I can put it up on the screen. Kind of dark to see, unfortunately. 707 has a front integral garage and then 3 stories above it with front and rear setbacks. It's also in accordance with the height of 705 Richmond, which is the kind of odd tower to the left in the photo. It's in the rear yard of that house to preserve the historic house in the front. And in the bottom photo, you see a similar thing of 721 Richmond, which also has a rear sort of tower addition to preserve the historic building in the front. The density is in keeping with existing and the emerging densities in the area. We were looking for a deferral so we could work with neighbors to reduce the density further and perhaps get rid of the main wall height variance, but they were not interested in that. We were also looking to work with them on materiality and such. No street parking is being removed as a result because there's an existing mutual driveway. The garage is simply moving from the rear to the front so that we can increase the soft landscaping in the back. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, how many of you, we'll go to the opposition and then I'll have you back. How
Great.
many people are speaking? So one, do you have one or two? Two? Okay. Who's going first?
I'll go first.
Okay. I'll need
Hello.
name and address first.
My name is Scott Cressman. I'm the resident at 743 Richmond Street West, the property immediately to the west, the subject property. I've been a resident of the neighborhood for over 30 years, 15 of those in this house here, which I've been restoring for far too long. As referenced, this particular property that you see, it's a fairly modest historic home dating from the mid-1880s. It has undergone a fair amount of interior restoration and addition. It represents a one-time coverage of property. So as you can see that within the one-time coverage, there's potential to maintain historic scale of street. Richmond Street between Niagara and Tecumseh, I'm not sure if anyone's had an opportunity to visit, but it's a fairly vibrant street just south of Queen. Lots of activity, lots of different types of housing that take place, lots of different scales. Anything from single-story officers' cottages that date from the mid-1850s to some very sensitive and less sensitive new builds. But having said that, there is a underlying quality of scale that's typical of the street itself. And that's in the 2 to 3 story building height. In principle, I have no issue with density. I understand we're a growing city. We need to grow with it in terms of density, that buildings are getting larger. That said, though, I'd like to ensure that any new builds that take place on the street, which is for the most part a finished street, are sensitive to that existing density or existing scale, and in particular my home specifically, which sits immediately adjacent. So just to recap, I have a 2-story home, and what is being proposed is a 4-story project that immediately butts my property. I do have grave concerns in terms of scale, in terms of how it's being approached. And I noted that the requested, gross floor area that's being requested is 1.5. So that's a significant overbuild to what is currently the standard. And again, just for reference, my own home represents a 1-time coverage. So it can be done within a fairly discreet and sensitive manner. My other concern, and this is a general concern for the neighborhood, but me specifically, is the relocation of the parking to the front of the house. I see this as a very bad precedent to set. It has a detrimental impact on the life of the street. There's fewer eyes on the street. There's security issues that could come out of that. Yes, there's precedent for it, but they're not good precedent, and I would prefer not to see that approach to be taken. In addition, the the manner in which that garage is being shown as kind of an angled slot, I see as an ongoing concern, and I think could become an eyesore for the rest of the neighborhood. And finally, more specifically, on the south elevation, there's a request to reduce the side setback from, I think it's 0.25 or 0.75 to 0. My main concern with that, although I don't have in principle have concern with reducing setbacks, is the location of one of the principal entrances to the rear yard, which is at an elevated elevation because of the somewhat split level arrangement of the home, so that any privacy that I have in my backyard would be lost due to the primary access door being located immediately adjacent to my property line and set at an elevation of about 5 feet above the common elevation, and being glazed, it would be highly visible to both of us, which I think would be an ongoing concern. So, I think that kind of summarizes where I stand, but again, I'm not against development in the area. I understand that the neighborhood is emerging. I would, though, like to see that it be done in a sensitive way. I know it perhaps sits outside the discussions of this, but one consistencies of a very varied street is the use of masonry brick for almost all the existing buildings and the new. Of noted here is the lack of any real response in that terms that the building proposed is being executed out of some wood battens and white stucco, which aside from being somewhat foreign to the language of the street, as I think as we all know, is not a material that ages with great grace and contributes to the street as we move forward. That's a summary.
Okay. Panel members, any questions of the
No.
speaker?
Could you leave you have an elevation that shows the content. Can you leave
Yes.
that, please?
Yeah. So my home is on the right-hand side at 743. It's a 1880, 1890 structure. It's actually one of a three-door row. The two rows immediately to the east of me have been modified significantly. I've taken pride in literally restoring it. To the subject property immediately to the east is of uncertain date, but of similar scale and quite large. I think it should also be noted that these are wider, the subject property are wider properties than the typical 17, 12-foot properties in the neighborhood. So when you go to the increased density, it automatically results in a building mass that's quite significant and quite different from what is there. Not to say that there's anything in principle wrong with that, but I think it needs to be handled in a very sensitive manner. And I don't see it. I'm very concerned, as are many of my neighbors, that the expression being chosen in terms of materiality, massing, and setbacks is quite foreign. And in addition with the front-facing garage, is quite foreign to what is a historic street of Toronto.
Okay. I'm gonna, do you have a question?
Just one, your home and the one next door are not designated yet, or are they anticipated to be designated?
My home is not, although it's been requested of me to follow through on that.
So it may potentially be designated?
It may be, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Some of the others on the street are, though, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cressman. So I'll ask the next speaker to come up from your. And I'll need your name and address.
Yes, my name is Robert Bergman. I live at 694 Richmond Street. I'm about 10 houses down across from the proposed building site. Scott addressed a lot of my issues, but I would just like to point out that I think I can speak for all the neighbors that this home is completely uncharacteristic with what exists in our street. Our street is, as Scott mentioned, is a unique street. It has a lot of small two-story buildings. It's a little eclectic. But this is completely out of character with what we currently have. We do have one building, which the builders referred to, 707. It was approved some years ago, and it's, in our view, an eyesore. And it's really what, having that been approved, is what really galvanized the entire community, is because this is what we do not want to have happen again. And it's continually being referred to by any suspecting or any buildings that are being requested, as this is what the standard is, and it's not the standard. It's what it's obviously a mistake that was been made in the past, and it's a mistake that we do not want to see happen again. I'm also concerned that the people who are developing this are actually a development company. This is what they do for a living, and my concern is that their basically their square footage, they want to have it as large as possible, so that therefore they can turn as large a profit as they can at the expense of our neighborhood. So that's all. Thank you.
Members, any questions? Mr. Chairman? No? Okay. Are you opposition?
No, I'm actually the...
Okay, well, hold on a second, because Mr. Galbraith, are you coming back now to address because it should only be like one person. I mean, if there's something that the owner needs to add, but there's nothing there. The opposition, I believe, is finished, so we need you to address.
Thank you. So first, the owners are going to be this is their house. This is not a redevelop and flip. They want a house that works for them and will work with the neighborhood. And as we had said, we were hoping to work with the neighbors to reduce the massing, but here we are. With regards to 707, it is in the neighborhood. It does form part of the character of the neighborhood. And we were drawing upon that in the design of this building. We're happy to change materials, look, but that's not before the committee today. The FSI of the building was actually increased at the request of the planning department. It was going to be originally 1.3, I think, but that would have triggered a different variance, and the planning department said they would not support that other variance. They would only not object if we went with this FSI, which I agree is odd, but that was the direction that we got.
What was the variance it would?
So it was going to be a carport instead of a garage, and that would have triggered a variance for parking in front of the main wall, which they didn't like, and so enclosing the garage increased the FSI, which they supported.
See.
It is odd, but nonetheless, that is. If I can refer you to the drawing that is up on the screen, the height of the building is permitted as of right. It's a 12-meter zone. If we were to reduce the density, let's say, it could be entirely pulled from the rear of the building and have no change in the streetscape. We respect that the character of the neighborhood is somewhat unchanged, but is not entirely unchanged. Densities in the area include 655 Richmond at 1.87, 1.43, 1.26, 1.5, 1.48. There are a number of densities in the area that are in the range of what we're looking for and exceed what we're looking for.
What's the density of 705 and 707? You know?
707 is 1.26. 705, I don't have off the top of my head. It would be less comparable because it's in the rear yard. It had a whole other things. What else were the comments? Parking. There's no variance required for the integral garage. Transportation Services has not weighed in. We're not removing on-street parking. And privacy. We're happy to put a privacy screen on that rear exit, but providing a 45-centimeter setback, I don't think significantly changes the relationship between the two yards in terms of privacy, because it's still visible from the second floor. We live in a dense city, and issues of overlook are largely unavoidable. The current house can see into the rear yard of the neighbor's property. So we're happy to add that as a condition, a privacy screen, But as a function of the variance, I don't think it's a significant difference. If you have any other additional questions for me, happy to answer them.
Just a quick one. You mentioned, as you were talking just now, that you had proposed or suggested some alterations to meet the needs or the questions and concerns of opposition. What were they?
So we needed time to basically remass the building and get a new zoning certificate to find out exactly what the new density would be. So we could, for example, we could provide the side yard setback on the west, provide that 0.45. That would reduce the density. We could get rid of the main wall height variance by pitching the roof and getting rid of one of the green roofs. We could do that. We didn't want to, but we could do that. We could pull the rear of the building in, reducing the density again. But we would need time to sort those things out and have a properly designed building and change the materials. Maybe we could move the garage to the back. But again,
Were there any discussions with the neighbors prior to coming here? I mean, we've got a number of people who've showed up. Were there discussions about these issues with the neighbors prior to this morning?
there were some. We spoke with the neighbors. I understand. I completely agree. And we're not looking to negotiate at the podium. Yeah. We did speak with the neighbors prior to this. We circulated our own notice. The neighbor on the other side is not here and did not sign the petition. We've made changes to the rear of the building, working with her to her satisfaction.
Any questions, panel members? Okay. I will just say it's unfortunate that the discussion in this. It sounds like at least 2 of the variances would have been removed. This stage dealing with for us. I mean, in terms of the height, as the variances, some not. In the,
Yes, from my view, I understand what you're saying in terms of the density and the setbacks. I mean, the setback is an existing condition in any event, but I have concerns about the front and rear main wall heights and in the massing that produces as a result. We have a 3-story, but what looks to be a 4-story building. The massing is very large, and you have pointed out that 707 has a similar look and feel. But in my view, one building does not dictate the prevailing character of this stretch of the street. So I feel that where I get stuck and where I find there are concerns are the massing of the building that are triggered as a result of the main front and rear wall heights.
I would totally agree with you. I think that's my concern as well. It just adds to the massing of the building, and I have concerns that it doesn't fit into the pattern of the neighborhood.
Madam Chairman, I agree with my colleagues. I have really serious reservations about this proposal. I thought the appellant that lives next door gave a very good presentation about how it does not fit into the particular character of his building, which is the most adjacent, and also the character and predominant quality of the street in general, notwithstanding the fact that you found one other house that has a similar size. I agree with my colleague, one house does not a street make. There are more houses that it doesn't fit with. On that basis, I don't feel that this application should be approved, and I'm going to move that it be refused.
Okay, I have a motion to refuse the application.
I'll second that motion.
And Mr. Niffel, seconded by Ms. Carlson. Favor? Your application's refused. And to the people here, did you fill in the decision request cards? And please give it to the staff member. Okay, the next item is item number 8, 102 Merrill. Is your opposition still here?
They are.
Okay. Panel members, we have before us. Okay, I'll just wait a minute. Where is your opposition? Okay, can you come and sit on the side, please? Yeah, 8. Okay, panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and 2 renderings of the subject property. Correspondence in opposition from 100 and 107 Merrill Avenue.
Good morning, committee members, Madam Chair. My name is Graham Barrett of 1575 Dundas Street West. I'm the agent for the owners of 102 Merrill Avenue East. As you know, we're here to propose several variances from the zoning bylaw in order to permit construction of front and rear additions to an existing home, which is set back very far from the front lot line. Most of these variances are required to create 3 separate 2-bedroom rental units in this home, which will be suitable for families with children, perhaps requiring more than a small 1-bedroom apartment or a condominium. Planning staff have been consulted well in advance of this morning's meeting, and they had no concerns about the proposal, other than a request to put in trees or shrubs for screening in front of the basement access facing Merrill Avenue, which the owners were happy to comply with. It's been done and shown on the plans and submitted. I will be happy to go through all these variances if you'd like one by one, but really, let's do that. So 2 entrances leading to secondary suites in the front of the building. Again, planning had no concerns. One entrance is to be partially hidden with landscaping and plant life. The other is up the steps, front door, and then a side door. It's barely visible from the street. I would consider that minor in nature. Variance number 2 for front and side main walls facing the street being altered to accommodate a secondary suite. As you can see, this home is set back very far. The front and side walls would be altered no matter what is done to this home, whether it be 1 secondary suite or simply to expand a single-family dwelling. There's really no other option. Variance number 3 for secondary suites to be 66% of the interior floor area of the dwelling unit, where the maximum is 45. This is, again, because the owner is proposing 3 rental units in the building. If it were 45% of the floor area split into 2 secondary suites, it would result in some fairly small units indeed, and his goal is to really have 2-bedroom units that can accommodate families. Variance number 4 for exterior stairs, 0.17 meters from the west side lot line. That is in line with the existing setback of the home, and it'll be no closer to the neighboring home than it currently is. Variance number 5 for front yard soft landscaping is quite minor. We're talking less than a meter squared difference. Rear landscaping is the result of the 2-story rear addition and existing parking, which is on the lot and has been there for some time. There are 3 parking spaces in the back. Again, parking variance for number 7, a max of 2 parking spaces can be located in the rear yard, where in this case there are 3. Excuse me, this is an existing condition. I have a photo here to show this. So that is already there, and the owner is simply seeking to maintain it. In all honesty, the fact that these 3 parking spaces exist is a bit of a gift, considering that they want to have 3 units in this home. This will allow for a parking space for each without creating anything new or putting any strain on area street parking. Then again, I also I mean, this is downtown Toronto. We don't necessarily have a car for every household. Woodbine subway station is 450 meters away. A lot of people rely on active transport as well. So, but regardless, 3 parking spaces will continue to be provided. Building depth for variance number 8, we're only asking for a difference of 0.51 meters. It's fairly minor in nature. Other approvals in the area have been granted. On Copeland, specifically close by, we've seen 17.45 and 17.51 at number 12 and 21, respectively. Floor space index, we're proposing 0.98, where 0.6 is the max. Again, this is required to accommodate 3 units. There have been other approvals in the area of comparable numbers, some greater. The 2 that I mentioned on Copeland are at 1.12 and 1.08. There's a few others going down in the 0.6 zone where it's 0.96 all the way down to 0.66, but quite a few variances for FSI have been approved in the area. Side yard setbacks, again, those are existing conditions. The additions will be constructed in line with those existing conditions, and jogging the front and rear walls in 0.73 meters or 0.86 meters front and back to comply would look quite strange, compromise the design, and reduce the livable space on the 2nd and 3rd floor. The sidewall height is quite minor as well, and is mostly due to downslope at the front, where established grade is quite a bit lower than the rear of the home. So seeing as I'm at 5 minutes, I will wrap this up, but I believe the variances are minor in nature and planning staff agree. The proposal is suitable for the development and use of the land. We're in keeping with the zoning bylaw, as the site is zoned R and more than 1 secondary suite is permitted. And I believe we're in keeping with the spirit of the official plan. As this site is designated neighborhoods, and additional residential units will fit in well with the area. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Barrett? Okay, we'll go to the opposition and we'll have you back.
Great, thank you.
Okay, who's speaking? Both of you or one? Okay. Okay, so we need your name and address before you start.
Sure, I'm Connie Day. I'm here to speak on behalf of my daughter, Cynthia Day, who's the owner of 100 Merrill Avenue East. We appreciate that she would have preferred to have been here, but work commitments made that unfeasible. So I do appreciate your attention here this morning, and regarding the proposed variances for the project next door to 100 Merrill, which is at 102 Merrill Avenue. Cindy has written a letter that I believe that you have, quite detailed, regarding the specific variances and the potential adverse event or effects on her home. I know you have one other letter on your files from the adjacent neighbor across the street who, like Cindy, was unable to come due to work commitments. I'm going to speak to the criteria that require the committee's satisfaction in order to approve or not the proposed variances. I am not a professional city planner, so please excuse any lack of polish here or any detailed knowledge of the intricacies of the city's bylaws. It's in the city's official plan that there's an intent to protect and reinforce the existing physical characteristics of a neighborhood. And physical changes to the neighborhood must be sensitive, gradual, and fit into the existing character. Furthermore, the plan states that the objectives of a new development are to respect and reinforce the general patterns of the neighborhood. The proposed building at 102 Merrill, and we have a picture of it here, but perhaps there's one in your package, is a very modern, contemporary dwelling in a stable neighborhood of single-family detached and semi-detached dwellings, all built before 1950, so well over 70 years old. The current homes have front entrances, maybe number 1 there, front entrances, gables, dormers, front porches. Most of the homes in the area, we have picture 2, have perhaps 3 bedrooms. However, the house that is being renovated has 1 bedroom. Large trees line the streets. Could we have picture 2? As the city planning agent pointed out, this is a picture of the parking congestion that is along the street, and this picture was taken at 10 o'clock on a workday, so you can imagine what it's like after work during the week. The new build is a large, square, flat roofed with 3 front entrances. I appreciate the fact that they have attempted to hide the 3rd entrance. The basement entrance is off the front of the house, not at the rear for that secondary unit. It will have 6 bedrooms. Large windows and sliding glass doors emphasize the modernity of the building. It's not compatible with the physical characteristics of our neighborhood. The policies outlined in the official plan for the integration of development are also outlined. A letter addressing the specific numerical standards, and I referred to my daughter's letter there. Sorry, I lost my spot. Outlines the adverse events that are proponent to this developer's proposal. It disregards the prevailing heights, the massing, the scale density, and the type of dwelling by nearby residential properties. It disregards the prevailing building types and the prevailing dwelling type and scale. It disregards the physical characteristics of the properties that face the same street as the proposed development in the same block and the block opposite the proposed development. It disregards the prevailing rear and side yard setbacks and landscaped open spaces. Foundation and brick damage is not a minor adverse event. It is a situation that costs thousands of dollars. And in addition, this front extension creates a fire hazard. It blocks the only window to the basement that provides an emergency escape from that level. It disregards the needs to provide adequate privacy, sunlight, and sky views for the occupants by ensuring adequate distance and separation. It is mute regarding the continuation of special landscaping or built-in form features that contribute to the unique physical character of the geographic neighborhood. I refer here to the retaining walls along the north side of MERRILL Avenue that are part of all the homes' front landscaping. Can we have picture number?
Well, you're at 5 minutes, so I'll give you a little bit more time. So a minute, will that do it?
I'll try and talk faster. The fact that the developer needs 12 variances to squeeze this building onto the lot reveals that the intent of the bylaws are not being maintained. These variant adjustments may appear minor, a centimeter here, a percentage there, an extra doorway, a little increase in floor space on each of the 3 levels, a whole new facade. Truly, this is a case where, as Aristotle has said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. It is not in the interests of maintaining the neighborhood, it's just in the interests of a single developer on a single residential lot. It is the volume of variances that disrespects the intent of the bylaw. The bylaw variance requests seek to increase the size of the building. Buried in the variance request for increased floor space is the outcome that the secondary units will not be subordinate to the primary dwelling. In fact, the primary level becomes the subordinate in size, unless, of course, this is actually a triplex and not the renovation of a single family dwelling to have a secondary suite or 2.
I really need you to wrap it up.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions of the speaker?
I'm sorry. Any questions?
Oh, I thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Barrett, just to the issues that were raised.
Sure, happy to. So typically when you see something like this, which is a fairly modern design in a fairly old neighborhood, some people don't like it, and I understand it's very difficult to be the first, and change is difficult for a lot of people. So a few things I'd like to go through. I did drop a letter in the mailbox at 100 MERRILL. Admittedly, it was only on Saturday. I was hoping to catch her at home and have a chat about this before I came here, but I hadn't heard back until letters of opposition were sent in yesterday. In terms of inserting a triplex into a residential neighborhood, this has been through zoning review and identified as two secondary units. If zoning had identified as a triplex, it'd be a different story, but that is how zoning has written it up. So that is what we're here to discuss. Reducing the size, as mentioned in the letter, I mean, the whole purpose of this is 3 two-bedroom units to rent out and create 2 more long-term rental units, which are sorely needed in a housing market where there's a shortage. Altering the streetscape of the neighborhood, changing the dynamic, admittedly, as I said, is a bit of a departure aesthetically, but it's always tough being the first. She did bring up concerns about foundations and potential damage. This is not an issue for committee, although I do understand, and I would hope that the builder is responsible about that and ensures that no damage comes to the neighboring property during construction, as with any project. The mention of a fire hazard blocking this basement window, I'm not really clear on building code and what constitutes an appropriate fire exit, but window basement. And it's that side yard of 100 MERRILL is not in compliance with the side yard setback at all. Clearly, it predates it. It's about 2.25 meters from the side yard. So if there were a fence or anything along those lines, this fire exit would be blocked regardless. They also brought up a lot of concerns in these letters about light and specifically into that basement window. But if this house were to be built in line with required front yard setback at 0.9 meters from the side yard setback, there would be no light for a basement window. I think an expectation of sunlight in a side basement window facing a property is a little bit unreasonable, unfortunately. There are a few other points that were brought up in the letters of opposition regarding garbage, but it's, again, not a matter for committee of adjustment. And parking, and I was a little confused as to why there was a bit of pushback regarding parking for this, as we are providing 3 spots on the lot where we're only allowed 2, and it is an existing condition. I mean, as I mentioned before, it's highly unlikely that any of these renters will be 2-car households, and much more likely that there'll be no-car households or tenants who rely on public or active transportation, as things seem to be going downtown. When you take a look down MERRILL Avenue and some of the photos that my associate here provided, you'll note there's very little parking provided on individual properties. There's very little front yard parking. There's minimal parking provided by most homes along that stretch, and we seem to be the exception with 3 spots. So I believe I've addressed some of her concerns. If you have anything else, I'd be happy to answer you.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for Mr. Barrett? No? Okay. Comment?
I'm concerned about the massing on this lot. I think it's almost double the floor space that's permitted on the lot. I'm not so concerned about the parking because there are 3 spots available on the lot, and that seems reasonable to me, even though there does seem to be a parking issue. It just seems like, in order to provide extra, 2 secondary suites, which isn't necessarily even in keeping with the neighborhood, they've put a lot of massing on this lot. And I have concerns about that, whether or not it fits into the neighborhood.
I have similar concerns. I found your comment about being the first to introduce modern architecture is hard, but there's no obligation on you to introduce plain block architecture. There is an obligation on you to provide proposals that are in keeping with the persistent, consistent character of a neighborhood. And I would argue that this particular building form is not consistent with the dominant character of this particular neighborhood. I think, like my colleague, I think that the floor space index, to some extent the height, but the floor space index more than anything is making it impossible for you to look at a different form. The rectilinear box is the most efficient way of providing maximum amount of floor space. And I think that were you not trying to get that floor space index, it would allow some flexibility in configuring the top floor to put in some pitched roofs and dormers, which are clearly the consistent character of this neighborhood. So I don't think that, excuse me, you've made a compelling case for these variances based on the particular proposal that you have before us, and on that basis, I'm going to bring forward a motion to deny the application.
Okay. I have a motion to refuse the application moved by Mr. Nipple. Do I have a Mr. Bayat? All in favor? Ms. Larson, are you in? No. Sorry. Okay.
All right, thanks.
Is refused.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Okay, the next item is item number 11. 1173 Dundas Street West. Is the opposition still here? Okay, can you come to the front and grab a seat? Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and email correspondence from the assistant planner. And can we have your name, please?
Sure. Good morning. Yes, still morning. My name is Mehdi Ajman. I'm here as the applicant and also the architect of project on behalf of my client, the owner of 1173 Dundas.
Okay, can you do a brief presentation, please?
Sure. It's very straightforward case. Actually, there is an existing 3-story building there. We have existing bar in main floor, which going to be existing to remain. We don't touch it. Our proposal is second and third rear addition on top of the bar to make we have 2 existing residential unit there. We are proposing just bigger residential unit, not in number, just in the area. We still have 2 residential unit there. Most of our variances are related to existing condition there. For variance number 1, the existing parking is required to maintain, although we explained it to the zoning examiner and also planning department. That area at the rear is not legit, is not practical parking there, but they said since there is parking on their record, we have to keep them. But we didn't change anything. We just proposed a garbage enclosure at the rear yard, which is our second variance. At the existing condition, all the garbage bins are, left on rear yard. We proposed garbage enclosure there in terms of improvement in a site and also the requirement of the zoning bylaw.
Just to be clear,
Sure.
So variance 1 is an existing condition, number 2 is also existing, except you're enclosing it?
No. They put a garbage bin in the backyard. There is no enclosure there. We just proposed enclosed garbage area there. Yes, garbage enclosure, but that garbage enclosure, we are proposing it, but location of that garbage enclosure is so close to the side wall of neighbor. That's what caused the variance. Variance number 3 is related to existing location of rear wall. Our proposal is fit in the existing footprint of the building, since we are proposing on a second floor and third floor, cause this variance, but it's comply with the existing footprint of the building. Variance number 4 again is encroachment to 45-degree angular plane related to existing condition.
I have a question. That's an existing condition. That's not triggered by the addition?
No, actually, we have 3-story building now. Even existing 3-story already encroached to that 45-degree.
The existing already does?
Yes. Okay. For the GFA variance, we are asking for 2.53 instead of 2.5, which is very minimum. We have 295 square meter instead of 291, which caused by providing some fire escape, some extra common space for a bigger unit there. And all those variants repeat under old bylaw as well. We had a chance to talk with our neighbor, our opposed neighbor. He had some concern regarding the acoustic situation of existing building, although it's above this session, but we explained that by proposing new residential unit, addition in new residential unit, we have to provide minimum requirement STC enforced by OBC there, which is STC 50. And also we had a chance to chat with my client and our neighbor, and we voluntarily agreed to propose extra acoustic value in main floor, which is not required by zoning bylaw, to provide extra acoustic value for our neighbor building for the bedroom area.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions, panel members? Okay.
I'm still hung up on the angular plane because often that's triggered when you go up in height. You said the existing building already penetrates the angular plane?
Yes.
Slightly or?
Just slightly, but we encroach more than.
The additions will completely penetrate.
Not completely. Third floor is mostly completely, but second floor is slightly encroached there.
You don't have a drawing that shows the angular plane, do you? If you do, can you put it on the overhead?
Is it in here? I didn't see it.
I was looking for it.
It's helpful to see what exactly we're talking about.
I can draw it here, but I don't. Sure. On the other plane, the angular line going to start from 7.5 from the top. It already exists. And all
That's the neighbor's building?
Okay, thank you. You, sir, you have 5 minutes. We'll need your name and address before you start.
Hi, my name is Carlos Alves. I'm the owner of 1175 Dundas Street West. My only concern is, the noise. It's been struggling, for the past couple of years. I addressed this to the person that owns the bar, and he's not very cooperative. And now I'm facing in adding more into the existing building. And my existing building, my rents are very low because I can't keep up people there because they keep on complaining about the noise. And now I have concerns about this.
So, unfortunately, the committee doesn't have jurisdiction, like we have no way of enforcing anything. I would suggest that, the applicant just stated that they're willing as a sound barrier on the walls. I would suggest maybe you write some kind of two of you, because as much as we'd like to, we just can't impose those.
Okay.
Because, yeah, if it were, you know, putting a screening or an opaque window or something like that, we can do it, but not that, what you can't. But
Noise should being generated by
bar,
a bar.
Yes.
It open, we have past where
Hours.
hours of the bar are limited. How, is it open all night long or?
Open every day until 3 o'clock in the morning.
But see, it's not before us, Carl. I don't think we can do anything
Just
with
going to
that.
ask the applicant.
Yeah.
Perhaps agree. It's open until 3 o'clock in the
3
morning.
o'clock in the morning. And the people that live in their apartments are the people that work in the bars. So after the bar closes, they go up and keep the noise going on. So
I mean, I think your best bet is to try to get them to sit down today and do an agreement that they're going to do that, and hope that would help.
Bad. I don't know.
yeah, we tried that, but unfortunately
It doesn't work.
you know,
Because the ambient noise from a bar can be quite loud, like even if you go for coffee, depending sit, it can be, they're not do anything.
So how many residential units do you have in your building?
3. The 2 on the second and third, and 1 in the basement. The property is like 60 more, a little bit more, 60% residential.
So the main floor is a commercial use of some sort?
I'm sorry?
Is there a business on the main floor of your building?
Yes.
No.
It's my wife's. I actually sleep there and experience all of these for the past 2 years. And
I'm wondering, this application looks like it's going to add some residential upstairs in the actual building. So I'm wondering whether or not that's going to be a problem for their own tenants. Like, what's the existing status?
So if that would be a question maybe to the for the agent. So if is there any other questions for?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you. So you heard that question? You can, if you can answer.
About that. Actually, the problem that he mentioned is with the existing tenant. You know, we had the chance to meet the owner of the building for the first time today. My client, as the owner, didn't know about this issue. He thought that it was solved, but we had a good reason for that.
I'm confused. Your client is the owner?
Yes.
No, the bar.
But there is a tenant on a bar.
Okay, but your client is the owner?
Yes.
The tenant has a tenancy with your client?
No, there is existing tenant for the bar, and they have existing lease. We don't have any authority on them except.
You don't have although you own the building, you haven't owned the lease.
I already assumed the lease, but the bar is existing to remain. We don't even touch the bar.
So you're saying that the owner wasn't aware of the noise complaints because
Exactly.
they were dealing directly with the tenant?
Exactly. But by proposing new addition there is a situation we have to improve the case, and I will explain. Based on your building code, you have to provide minimum 50 for all residential units. If I can very preliminary, this is our property and our neighbor property. Here is the bar and here is commercial. The problem is this. By our proposal, if we get approval for this proposal, we have to provide a minimum at the side of the bar. And also on this side, we have to provide again 50 again minimum required. But on top of that, since our neighbor still has the concept that we thought that on the main floor, the existing main floor, the neighbor had it in front of the building, this area, and the are less than 20 feet. We proved that we add a on but we volunteer.
Okay, so that's what you're doing in good faith to, well, maybe you can iron out some of that satisfies him today since. Okay, any other questions of the applicant? All right, panel members, we'll take it into committee.
Madam Chairman, I don't have any difficulty with the application today. I have with the noise problem that's been raised. I also very forthcoming in at least reduce the problem and may ultimately entirely. On that basis, Madam, I think relevant really means yes.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Okay, motion to approve, moved by Mr. Niffel, seconded by Mr. Payette. Your application's approved.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is item 16, 291 Indian Road. Is your opposition still here? Yes. Okay, can I have you come to the front here? Panel members, we have before us a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations. We have a staff report from community planning, as well as manager permits and enforcement parking, and the acting supervisor of forestry is asking for condition number 3. We have opposition correspondence from 286 Indian Road. Can I have your name, please?
Morning, my name is Bruno Lopes and I'm the agent on behalf of the owner.
Okay, you have 5 minutes. If you can do a brief presentation, just opposition.
Well, I'll start from the variances. I believe we have 4, but 2 of them actually are a repetition, which is the parking. The first one, it's regarding the floor space index. It's 0.6 and we are at 0.85. We have, I actually have a document that there was a hearing in actually August. There was a hearing in August that actually on the very adjacent street, so we are talking about Indian Road, is Indian Grove. They asked for 94%, so we are still a little bit lower than what's being already approved. In terms of number 2, this was, it's a variation that actually I've been discussing with planning. We are allowed at 7.5 meter height on front wall and we are at 9.7. So the key factor here is that because this kind of design is sort of the modern design, is more of a square, we can easily take this variance out if we do the regular pitched roof, like it's more in line with the neighborhood majority. But again, the way that the client and the way we proposed the design was to try to do sort of a modern style, and the modern style, of course, it's with a flat roof.
You are aware we have a planning report that's asking for review.
Correct. I'm aware, and again, I discussed with the planner, and she said she understands. And in terms of feasibility for construction, again, the way we designed this building was to be the most energy efficient as possible. Because it's a 3-unit, we have these stairs that it's common area for the 3 units. So we have a couple of things here that the way we work it out, we find this was the most feasible way to do it. I have some other pictures.
Do I understand you'd say that if you go to a pitched roof form, you would need those variants?
I won't need that variance because, again, the neighborhood, if you look at a few different houses just adjacent to it, we are allowed a 10-meter height, right, in roof, and some of them, they go plus 13. So they are really tall roofs. So it's not that difficult to actually impose a massive roof on this house, but it's not the intent, right? So we want to have it clean and clear and not do a massive roof. So most of, I would say this street particularly, it's old homes and they have these massive roofs and they have dormers, and so We could have so introduced that, but again, I'm trying to get a very efficient house, and the houses in there, it's a sort of a different scenario because again, they were built 100 years ago. There are a couple of homes on the neighborhood, and I have some pictures, if I may. So this is just one being built, and I'm gonna show a couple more pictures. So this is very typical to what we are doing, and this is on Indian Grove. So this is about a couple of 100 feet away. Yeah, this is Google. I passed by. Actually, I should have taken a picture but again, there were people there, and sometimes people get a little bit fussy if you take pictures when people are around.
I don't understand.
Is it a big flat roof?
Yes, it is. I can show a couple more pictures.
Okay, hang on.
I didn't mean to.
Sorry.
I'm glad to have this help because.
Okay.
So anyway, in nature, it's not new. There are a couple of them in there. There is another one just on the next street. It's coming again. This, of course, is an old neighborhood, and when we introduce this, some people they get a little bit keen, like, yeah, we don't like it. This is our neighborhood, but again, it's been introduced. It's nothing new. We are not talking about something that it's by the thousands of square feet, like.
But is that like a two-story house though?
Yes, this is a two-story,
So
yes.
they may not have had a variance for front wall height, like your variance. I don't know what the address, do you have an address for that?
It's Hewitt, no, it's not exactly the street, but it's on an adjacent street. Yeah, it's 51 Hewitt, which is pretty much on a 90-degree angle. It's at the edge of Indian Grove. It's sort of like where two streets meet. It's about, I would say, 100 yards on the vicinity. Yeah.
But anyway, can you just finish your presentation?
Yeah, no, not a problem. So again, we think that the variances are very minor. Again, it's quite common. Again, this committee already approved very similar situations, and yeah, it's only 3 of them in essence, right? So.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to the opposition? Okay, sir. So we'll come back to you after the opposition.
Thank you.
So you have the floor for 5 minutes. We need your name and address.
Hi, my name is Doron Meinhard. I live at 287 Indian Road, just the property directly south. So first I want to say that I know the neighbor, Tom. He's here today, and I was there when his house, while under major construction, there collapsed about 2 years ago, and obviously I'd like to see Tom come back into the neighborhood. I didn't know he was progressing with this. I found out through this application. I myself am an architect from a very prominent contemporary firm in Toronto. Anyway, so additionally to the planning staff's concerns, I think, that have to do with the front wall and the rear wall exceeding the 7.5 meters and the character of the neighborhood and the massing as that speaks, I just want to give a little bit about Indian Road. That portion of Indian Road is really where arts and crafts started in Toronto. That's where Eden Smith built his house in 1896, and then he built 5 other houses for his friends and neighbors, and that was the first period of arts and crafts movement in Toronto. So it is a significant neighborhood there. Not that I'm advocating for keeping the character exactly the way it is by any means and stretch. So I do have some concerns with the character of it, but prevalently, there's a cantilever proposed on the drawings, which it's hard to see in the drawings, but really what's happening is that the second and third stories are proposed to cantilever about 14 feet to the south over the existing driveway and over the garage. And such a cantilever form, I think, is quite strange. Beyond being modern or contemporary, it is strange in the neighborhood. So it's a 2-story cantilever, quite a large volume, basically to provide access to the parking. And I think that the planning staff also I believe that the south required setback is 1.2 meters, and they're actually only providing 0.45 meters. So I think there's actually a fourth variance that needs to be requested that wasn't requested and wasn't caught perhaps in the PPR process. So as you can see here, the proposal, I could put something on the slides, but the proposal would come within 0.45 meters of the property line, and my house has 3 windows on the second floor. It's a 2-story house on the second floor on the north side facing there. So at a minimum, I would like to see the proposal set back to the correct 1.2 meters. Additionally, I think that, I didn't know about this process, but I would like to offer my services free of charge to Tom to help him to help his architect work through some of these design issues to make a more favorable thing that perhaps the planning staff would support and endorse. I love this neighborhood and I'd like to see it be improved, and I think that the design can slightly be improved. And if I can take a minute to talk about that, I don't think that the parking is a valid approach, neither is it energy efficient the way it's laid out with a cantilever above an open space. I would much rather see the form of the building come straight to the ground, as is on all the houses there, straight to the ground throughout the property, and have that area, leave the garage in the back and leave a 9-foot wide driveway to get to that garage. They would add density, add FSI on the ground floor, slightly reduce it on the second and third floor, probably come out close to right around the 0.8 mark, between 0.8 and 0.85 that they're requesting, but have a much more contiguous design with the neighborhood. And I'd be happy to offer my services to help plan that. And then the last point, and I don't know if we have any bearing on this, but the materiality of the neighborhood, there's a lot of brick. As it was, the first home of arts and crafts in Toronto, there's a lot of brick. And I like that brick, whether it's in a contemporary fashion or not. But the cultured stone that's being proposed on these elevations, I believe is a very fake and not tangible type of material that I think is deserving for the character of this neighborhood.
Any questions?
I have one. I can't find your house on any of the surveys. Is it just me, or you're immediately south, right?
Yeah, I have 2 addresses. My house is a corner lot, so
You're the 100, is that
100 Bosteed and 287 Indian Road is the same house, is one house, yeah. That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions of the speaker? Okay, Mr. Lopez. You can speak to the issues raised only.
I truly appreciate the offer to work with us, because you don't hear that every day. We had a quick chat outside as professionals, and again, I'm not sure if this is it's our mistake when we did these setbacks on our table, and the city got it right, the city examiner, or if we got it right and the city examiner got it wrong.
I don't know. That's something you...
Correct. So this is something that it's really hard to actually discuss now, but in any means, I discussed with the owner and we'll be willing to actually move it to the 1.2. It still be suitable to actually do that underpass to the garage, because again, the way we've done the design, and yeah, it seems a bit odd, but it's not as common in residential, but it's very common in commercial to do this kind of access. Providing that usually parking lot is in the rear part of the properties, and which is the scenario here. So since the parking is at the rear, we are confined to have access, and the only way to have access, it's actually to create sort of almost a tunnel, right? So we could have tandem spots, but the tandem spots here, they didn't work because we actually tried that. There was not enough room to actually have 2 cars, and they won't fit side by side. They would have to go in front of each other, so it wouldn't be suitable for access. So one tenant would actually have to move the car every time the other one would like to go out. So wouldn't be suitable. We'll try to keep the existing as possible, and as was mentioned, this was a project that was ongoing. The house collapsed, and now we are with a brand new project. So in saying this, we are willing to somehow do a little bit of reducing, which this reducing will reduce as well the floor space index. So we'll see the variances will become even minor.
Any other questions? All right, let's take it into committee. Comments?
I have comments. Mr. Chairman, I agree with the neighbor about the odd solution of cantilevering two rather large, bulky stories above the driveway. I don't see a variance here that's causing that to be the solution. So much as I agree with the concern, I don't see a solution within the context of the variances that are being requested that I could suggest. I would definitely take him up on his offer of help. You don't hear that every day of the week. I do respect the planning department's position that this is not in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood. And apparently they have spoken to you about that. And perhaps the comment in their report is a little too terse. It says the applicant advised community planning that no changes would be made to the proposal, but that's not what you said to us today. You basically said today that if you were to look at a different roof form, that you would be removing the variances that planning, in fact, is suggesting we not approve. And my motion is to approve the application subject to condition number 3 and with the refusal of the variances number 2 that the planning department has recommended. I gather that that will generate a different building form. Hopefully in that evolution, some other attempts can be made to address the neighbors, I think, very real concerns. I don't think that's a bad proposal. I do think the refinement would definitely help it. That's my motion.
So my only concern, and maybe I'm missing the boat on this, is refusing to in terms of and that's my big concern, is the rear and front main wall heights, and in fact, the proposed bulky 3-story massive building. You showed us one that was contemporary in nature, but it was 2-story, and that was one of my questions, does it meet the bylaw? And we found out they didn't get a variance. So that one seemed more palatable than the one that your client is proposing. I think this is far too big and bulky for this stretch of the neighborhood. But by refusing number 2, what kind of building form does that trigger? Does it trigger a building that's longer? I don't know. So because of the FSI is going to be over.
I'm taking the applicant at his word, and I think what he was suggesting, I'm putting words in your mouth, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. He was suggesting that by going into some kind of a pitched roof form, that there would be dwelling units and material within that roof form, and although it wouldn't have the same impact on the street as this particular.
And you could achieve the same FSI with a pitched roof.
I don't know, because I haven't done it, but we've got free architectural services offered to help him investigate that. I think it's worth trying.
It will be generally the same FSI.
From my view, I feel uncomfortable refusing just that one variance and leaving the rest as is. For me, I'm not an architect. I'd like to see what the plan looks like, what other impacts that have. I have concerns about what the neighbor has raised about the second and third floor being cantilevers. Does that trigger another variance? I suppose that's something you could have to deal with later on. So I'm uncomfortable refusing just one variance, but I don't know what my colleagues think. My position would be refusal of the whole application.
And right. I have a seconder.
Madam Chairman,
Yep.
in response to the points that have been made, I withdraw my motion. I think that were it to be denied approval, perhaps we go back to the drawing board and we would solve all the problems, which is ultimately the best solution. So I withdraw my motion.
All right, do I have any other comments?
Just that I don't think that proposal today respects as the planning department says, respects or reinforces the existing physical character of the neighborhood. And I'm hoping when they come back, if they have to come back, or maybe they won't need to, that they'll come back with something that's a little more keeping with the neighborhood. And I completely agree with you, Lisa. Thank you.
Are you moving? Yeah. Motion.
I would move a motion that the application be refused, with the hope that the neighbor will work together to come up with something that's a little more compatible with the neighborhood.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Paya. The application is refused.
Thank you very much.
Last but not least, 536 Quebec Avenue and 538 Quebec items. Is your opposition still here?
Yes.
Where's the opposition? Yeah, can you come to the front, please? Okay, panel members, we have before us, for 536, we have a copy of the plan of survey, site plan, floor plans, and elevations, and a rendering of the proposed street front, email correspondence from specialized service team, lead real estate department, Hydro One, and staff report from community planning and forestry wants condition number 1. So let's just deal with 536 first. Okay. But maybe in your presentation, can you kind of lump them together? Okay.
They're both intricately tied, quite physically tied.
Okay, so we need your name, and then you have the floor.
My name is Joel Leon. I'm from Dunning Riverside Studio. We're the architect for 536 and acting as an agent for 538. The variances we are requesting are kind of to fit in a very narrow lot, kind of an adequate size housing. They're all quite minor in the heights. The one for the side walls has to do with making good use of that third floor, but then it comes back down and it's set back, so that height is not continuous throughout the entire property. You can see that on the side elevations. It does come down again with a patio at the top. And one of the conditions that was tied to 536 from that staff was recommending was to make sure that that screen did block that walkout entrance at the front. We are completely okay with that being a condition for the approval of our variances. There are similar kind of requirements for the minor variances for the next application as well. They are twin buildings and we're trying to keep their massing rather similar, even though their designs are a little bit different. And so that is where you're kind of seeing those variances. The side setbacks and the front ones are all to do with where the existing houses were. And it wasn't possible to preserve the existing houses because they're structurally in really bad condition, and it just made economic sense to start with a new building, but we're keeping roughly the front and the side setbacks where the existing houses are to kind of continue the character of the neighborhood.
Okay. Panel members, any questions before we go to the opposition?
I have a question for 536. I'm just looking at the front yard landscape. Perhaps I missed this on the plan. Why the reduction for this offscaping from 75 to 15?
So,
can you refresh my memory on this?
Yeah, so the reduction in that front for 536 is because of the walkout of the basement, the stairs, and we're so close to the front property line, there is not a lot of room to kind of fit anything.
Okay.
I have a question. Normally, the planning department, pardon me, objects to front basement walkouts, and they encourage applicants to look at alternatives. When we have front basement walkouts and there are none others in the community, we're not normally in a position to approve them. And the question is, well, could you not accommodate it somewhere else? But you actually can accommodate it somewhere else because you did it next door. Is there some reason why it is so important that you have a front basement walkout in 536 and
Yeah, so a lot of those conditions the neighbor to the north is actually the opposing neighbor. We've been able to reach an agreement for access, and so it's a little bit easier to do it. We don't have the same kind of relationship with the neighbor to the south of 536, so we wanted to make sure that the front entrance kind of maintained an independence, and we did a lot of effort in the design work to make sure that it wasn't visible from the front that there is that secondary entrance. It is kind of blended in. It looks like the porch, and planning staff seemed to be quite satisfied when we presented this option of saying you can't really see that there is that kind of second entrance. It's nice and hidden, and it also gives access to kind of that potential in the future secondary suite, because the unit has been designed so in the future it could become a secondary suite that can also have the front entrance that everyone else gets to enjoy.
What has to do with the assistance you have from the adjacent neighbor on the other property?
Yeah, to making sure that we can maintain a wide enough access.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I can ask you to grab a seat, and you, sir, if we can ask you to come to the microphone, and we'll need your name and address.
Yeah, excuse me, Sean Canfield. I'm at 540 Quebec Avenue.
Okay, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, my main concern is that on the one adjacent to B538, the wall, I guess his north wall was going to run directly, one point, there was going to be no setback at the back, like the houses now have a setback. They go a certain distance and then they set back a little notch out. And he wanted, in his drawing, it carries on right across this property line, which doesn't give him access to his laneway to get through the houses. So we've had a discussion, and he's going to actually put a setback in there, so that it'll be much like 536. There'll be a cantilevered second floor and room to get through his laneway to achieve between the houses. And that's sort of what I was opposed against, and that also the light, because that's on my south-facing walls, and that's all the light I get. So if he does set that back, I'm pretty happy with that, and everything else is okay.
Okay, let me have him back up and see if that changes anything.
That changes the plan on 538.
So that's 538.
Right?
So is there a change to the variances or not?
It doesn't change the variances because the cantilever will still require because it will only happen the setback at the back. So where his property also kind of notches, it would be kind of a matching setback. And so the variance for the 0.45 would still apply because in the front we're not stepping back.
Are you changing something on the plans then?
So we will work with them to revise the plans for the ground floor in order to kind of accommodate that setback.
Can you draw it in and then we can just incorporate it in our decision? And then you...
The drawings, the drawings were prepared by another office, not by my office.
Well, if you
we
can
can
indicate somewhere with even an arrow that you're changing that setback to whatever.
Both owners also have a written agreement, so maybe if we can use that as a...
No, we can't use
Or-
agreements. They're
Is that going to affect your FSI? Will that take away?
It will remove some of the FSI, yes.
Taking away.
It will, yeah.
What the new FSI is?
We haven't been able to kind of revise the drawings. I mean, we would have to actually go through and make sure that the rooms work. And so we had agreed to a certain distance, a minimum of a certain distance from the property line. And exactly how much that will kind of depend on how the design gets resolved.
What is the distance?
So do you have the agreement?
It would be minimal though, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right now, what we've agreed to is that we will not change it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Peter.
Well, we need your name if
sorry.
you're going to say something.
Peter Cunyo from 538. I own 538. And what Sean and I just agreed to is that we will notch, at the same point that his house notches, we'll notch in a minimum of 6 inches, which then, for our own benefit, gives us proper access.
No, I think one of the panel members was under the impression it might be a big change to the FSI, but
No, I don't.
all right. Okay. Any other questions, panel members?
You realize that unless if 5 groups today won't be with that as that needs.
So, Mr. Canfield, my colleague just said that because we don't have, like, the applicant's not able to make that change now, so we wouldn't be able to attach a condition. You have a private agreement, so we would be approving or not approving the application as it is for us, as long as you're comfortable with your agreement, because we can't. Normally, if somebody can make a change, then we just attach it to our decision, but we can't do that because he's not able to. Okay, so you would have to stand on your agreement. Are you comfortable with that? Yeah, and I mean, bottom line is we can't put it in as. All right. Okay, so we'll just, for next time though, if you can.
Yep.
Okay, so we're just going to proceed with what we have first. Okay? So, panel members, there were no further questions, so can we start with item 18, 536 Quebec Avenue? So, there is the planning condition and then forestry number 1.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to move the application subject to those conditions, one from planning, creating the basement blockout. This is in keeping with the community.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with the conditions. Mr. Cole, do I have a seconder?
Second it.
Okay, all in favor? That one's been approved.
Through you, Madam Chair,
Yep.
just with this next one.
Oh, okay, not the one, we're done with the one we just.
No, the next one. Just back to the wall. Is it just the main floor that's going to be notched in?
I believe so.
Correct, it is only.
It's only the main floor, and then there's a slight cantilever of whatever the distance is on the second, right?
I'm addition to say the wall, the rear portion of the north wall, is it? Will be set back from, in accordance with revised building plans to be signed and approved by the owner at 540.
Did you hear that?
Submit it later.
Does that work?
Sorry, was that clear? Would the applicant be agreeable to revise the plan, and then before you comply for a permit, your signature will have to be on those plans?
No, this is going to be a.
No, it just means when you go for your building permit plans, that's going to have to show the notch in on the main floor only? That's correct?
That's right.
And then you sign off on those plans and date them?
And you can make the change. You're not. Yes, so you can make the change.
And if you don't sign them, you don't get your permit. I don't generally like to advise that, but.
Well, thank you. Thank
Creative
you.
conditioning.
That makes me feel a lot more comfortable.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're now on item 19, 538 Quebec Avenue. So this one has forestry condition number 3 and no planning report, and then the condition outlined by the Deputy Secretary. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you said.
Yeah, which basically is that a rear portion of the main
North wall.
floor will be notched in 6 inches in accordance with the revised
No, not
plans
6
for
inches.
zoning.
Would be set back. I think it was the rear portion of the north wall would be set back on the main floor. The rear portion of the main floor on the north main floor will be set back in accordance with a drawing to be signed by the I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. The architect and approved by the neighbor? Okay. I'd like to move approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 3 and this condition, which I don't want to repeat, but we all know what it means, right?
Okay. All right, do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion is approved. Or I mean, your application's approved. Okay, and we are now recessed at 12:35.
Thank you, Anita. That was helpful.
12:35. Thanks, Anita.
Great, I wouldn't have got that.
Note to selves. We can do that. That's a good idea. And we even have time for lunch. Lunch.